I'm Samantha Wigglesworth, and I'm going to go over how I build a canvas. I got taught how to do this in university. I mean, this isn't my first year of university though. That was a good 5 years ago. So, I mean, it's been tweaked since then, but you know, the basics are still the same. I'm going to be going over this worksheet I made, also just for myself, because you make, 13 or 15 of them at a time, and then you don't have to do it again for a long time, which is the way I recommend doing it, because it's a lot less stressful. But then you forget how to do it, so I also just made these notes for me. But yeah, I'll probably post them somewhere. It'll be good. So the sheet is going over like the wood shop side of this, because obviously I cannot do a wood shop stuff in this room, nor would I want to. It's a lot easier just to make 15 at the same time than 2. So I'm just going to go over this a little bit and kind of explain, and then we'll get into the physical demo of stretching the canvas. Yeah, so I mean, like, building your own canvas, I was just mentioning to you, like, to build a canvas that's 2 foot by 3 foot and the quality that I make it, to buy would probably cost like $100, $200 just for the canvas. Like, it is phenomenal. I make this for around $15 a canvas. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little less, but on average, for 2 foot by 3 foot, gallery depth, really good quality canvas, it's about 15 bucks. It is a well worth it skill to have. So I start by getting just a 2x4. I get, Home Hardware, Home Depot, whatever. I get it from Home Hardware. The straightest one you can possibly get. Try to avoid knots and grooves on the sides. Some sides you can have it be a little bit more messed up. Some sides you need it pristine. So if you can just get the straightest 2x4 you can. I get 2x4s because then you just cut them in half. They're a lot nicer than 2x2s. If you get 2x2s, most of the time they're more warped, and they're just cheaper to get a 2x4. So 2x4, you'll get your table saw. You set it to 10 degrees, and you cut a width of 1.25 inches. So if you have your 2x4, so this is that degree. You'll see, it's just a little bit in. That's what you're cutting first. And then you'll flip it, so the butt end, and you'll cut the other side of it. So you're cutting 2 pieces out of that 2x4. And it's just, instead of cutting it in half and then taking the degree off, you just do it all in one go. Flip the butt of the straight edge and then cut again. Now this indent is very important. So when you're looking at it in terms of like a large canvas, you don't want a square edge here, because what that is going to do, because canvas is flexible still, I always think of it as like a drum, right? To have a good quality canvas, you want it bouncing like a drum. And if I can poke the wood and possibly get a crease there, that's no good. So you just want to take a little bit off, just so it's not going to interrupt the canvas. Then you will cut a notch, I call it a slot, 0.5 of an inch, so half an inch of the depth of it. So it's just a little notch. This is just to put these triangles into it, because that's what holds it together, is these glued in triangles. You will cut the triangles. I'm not going to go over all the specifics, because it's written on the paper. And I also drew diagrams of visuals, because I'm obviously a very visual person. And so I drew a ton of different visuals of why you're doing this and, stuff like that. I like to know the why. You want to make sure that the slot is on the inside of the canvas, so that's going to be the smaller side, not the thicker side, so that we can put it in so it bows in and not bows out, because that would defeat the purpose. You want to make sure that this edge is really nice, because obviously we're going to be wrapping canvas over this edge. You kind of want that one to be pure of imperfections. Like this one has a teeny tiny notch in it. That's going to create a little bump in it, right? You know, something to be aware of. And then, yeah, once it's all cut, like you cut them into 45-degree angles. So this one is actually cut the wrong way. So how we do it is we have them in a line like this, and we cut the 45-degree here, then we cut it again, and just have this little chunk, and then cut it again. So you're going to want to make sure to cut this at a 45 going in, and measure the outside length. So measure from here to here. That's what you want to be 2 foot, not the inside, right? Because or else it's going to be over 2 foot, which, I mean, isn't a problem if that's what you want, but that's not what I want. If you want a certain size canvas, that's what you're going to want to make sure of. So, you know, you can kind of visually see if we had another piece here, you know, you just kind of make them in an assembly line. So it's easy to think of then how many you can get out of all these pieces, right? So I usually just have like a little chart of how many 2-foot pieces and how many 3-foot pieces can I make. And, you know, you just need 2 of each. Whatever size you're doing, you need 2 and 2. When assembling it, it kind of goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Make sure you're putting the right side on. I cannot tell you how many times I have put the wrong piece on and had to take it apart and be like, oh my God, I just foobarred that, so I have to redo it. Not anymore. It has been 5 years. I hardly ever do that now, but it's mainly because I'm thinking about it constantly. You do have a little diagram of that. When you're putting them together, the main thing to know is, so when I'm putting them together in the wood shop, I have a piece of wood here and a piece of wood here clamped down. It's usually on a corner. So imagine this is a corner. I'll have these 2 pieces clamped down, and that's because when I'm making them, I'm gluing in this notch just to about where the triangle goes. I'll glue the butt end of it. You know, glue here, glue here. I'll put these together. I'll put the triangle in, and I'll pull it into that corner. That's what's holding it together, right? So the 90 degrees, we're not worried about a perfect 90 degrees being this corner. We're worried about this being straight and this being straight. This is going to get covered by canvas. If you've got a little bit of a gap here, it's not a big deal. It's still structurally sound. So when I've pulled that in, it's nice and straight. It's actually 90 degrees. I'm going to brad nail. So I'm just going to put 2 air nails, 2 air nails. And the nails are just to hold it together while the glue is drying. You know, the nails aren't actually what's going to hold it together in the end. It's the glue. So you want to make sure you're actually, you know, gluing the whole surface of the ends, and you're actually putting enough glue in there. Don't put too much glue, because then you're just going to make a mess. Also learned that one the hard way. But yeah, you just do that for all 4 corners. And then when that's done, I like to put an extra brad nail, or air nail. So, you know, you have the 2. I just put 1 extra here and here, just to make it hold better. I remember doing that because it looks like a face, and that's what I put here. It kind of looks like a little face. And when it is dry, or when it is drying, lay it face down. So the face is going to be where the canvas is. That's where it goes in. Lay it face down to dry. And make sure the surface you're laying it on is actually flat. I learned that's why some of my canvases are not actually flat. The spot I've been putting them in for the last 2 years is actually like a drain. So it goes in, and that's why my canvases aren't straight all the time. And sometimes they're like a little bit wobbly. A little bit of wobble, like that's gonna happen. I don't know how to avoid that. But yeah, let it sit for at least half an hour. I let it just dry overnight. I'd rather have it be more structurally sound than less. Because if you're not waiting long enough, when you're pulling with the canvas, you're putting a lot of pressure on this, it's just gonna fall apart. The glue is what's holding it together. If you don't let the glue dry, it's not gonna hold together. You know, But knowing why is, important, because I'm impatient. If I can skip a step, I will. And knowing I can't makes me not skip it. All right, now the fun part. Okay. Fun transition. Okay. Okay, so we're going to pull that out of the way for a second. So I have already pre-cut this piece of canvas, but I'll explain myself. So you'll have your canvas. Again, we're doing this face down. Don't stretch it the wrong way. That defeats the purpose of creating that nice edge, right, for the canvas. So you want to make sure you have enough room on the sides of the canvas. Now, these two sides, the longest sides, my roll of canvas, because I have just a giant roll of canvas, I got it at a really good deal, but it's 5.5 feet tall, 150 feet long, right? So I just cut off pieces. And 2 foot by 3 foot canvases, which is my favorite size, technically fits, but you have to be very specific when stretching it. So if you can give yourself a little extra wiggle room, do it, especially when you're first learning. It is hard to correct, and I do this to myself every time because I just like this size. But so how we're going to do this is you use canvas pliers. I have 2 different sets because I upgraded, but I still use my old ones because they can get into those smaller spaces. So it has this little butt on it, which is what you use when you grab the canvas. This is just going to pull because obviously nothing is there. You use that to inch over and then pull all the way onto the wood, right? So we can see that it's pulling and now it's tight, right? So that gives us space here that we can staple. And I will go over that more. This one, I mean, it's really nice. The only downside to this one is it does not have a great grip. It is metal and it hurts my hands. So I got the nice, spring one too. It holds better. It has a larger surface area, but it's horrible for corners. Because corners, you need it small and tight. So I just use both is the answer. And that seems to work great for me. Everybody is going to be slightly different, but figure out what works for you. So what I'm doing right here is when I'm first stretching this side, because I always do this to myself, in that the longer sides are going to have the least amount of give to them. I'm just measuring to see, okay, where is about halfway, right? So that's about good. Ideally you want it have a little bit more room than this, but we're gonna make it work. It's okay. So for the first one, you don't have to pull anything because you're not pulling against anything. We're always gonna work in threes, or at least I do. I always put 3 here. So when we're stretching canvases, never go in a circle. That is never what you want to do. If you do something to this side, immediately do it to that side. If you do something over here, do it over here. If you do something over here, right? So we're always going either across or diagonal, never in a circle. So I did that to this side. Now immediately, I'm going to flip it over. And sometimes when you're first stretching it, it gets annoying to flip over. Just drag it. Don't do what I just did. It's the annoying way. I forgot for a second. Okay. This one, we're going to stretch just a little bit. We're not going to stretch it too tight for this first one, simply because we don't want to pull it too much, because the rest of the pulling is going to help it as well. So we got our butt end on this side. I'm going to grab it and pull it just to the edge and pull it back. So now it's there, and I'm going to 1, 2, 3, and that's going to hold it there. It is going to crease and look really weird in the beginning. Don't freak out. That's fine. So now we've done this here. Now we're going to do it to the opposite side. So this one I have lots of extra canvas. Sometimes if you have too much, just cut it off. Just make sure you have enough to grip. If you have too much, you can also just fold it and grab it. So I'm also putting the canvas pliers, I'm not putting it right to the edge because that kind of defeats the purpose of pulling it. but I'm going about halfway to the edge, right? About halfway, and then I'm pulling. That was actually not enough, so I'm gonna do that again. There, so now we can see that's pulled. And 3. And we did it to that side, so now we're gonna do it to this side. I'm just fixing my canvas, making sure it's actually being, I wonder if I can sit and do this. I'm just working off a taller table. So pull, pull, and I can just feel that it went over. So then you take your, cool. So that's the first round. We can always check it, because it's obviously only tight in this corner, because we've done it here, 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 and here. So that's pulled it here. You can hear it starting to sound like a drum. It's starting to feel tight there. Obviously, the rest of this is not, but that spot is. That means we're on the right track, right? Sometimes the first few, it doesn't work as well. Just pull them out and redo it. Not a huge deal. So now, because I don't give myself enough slack, I look at the side that has the least amount of slack, and I'm gonna work off that side, which happens to be over here. So I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna do my small pliers today. The big ones, I'm still getting used to, so they're kind of annoying sometimes. We don't have to go right up against it. I give it about 1 inch or 2, sometimes 3 inches. If you're pulling it and you're noticing like a big crease here, get a little closer. Means you're too far away. So I'm going to pull that over. And I switch hands a lot of the time, because once it's here, it's not actually like, it doesn't take a lot of effort to hold it here. It's already pulled over and it's already clamped. So as long as you keep it clamped, it's fine. But there's no crease here, so we're all good there. So now we did to this side, which means we're gonna do the same over here. So we're gonna flip it right around. And I always double check, because I also get confused. So it's over there, now it's over here. I'm gonna do the same thing. Pull, go over the edge. One thing I will note, don't pull it too tight. There is a balancing act that's really hard to describe. If you pull it too tight, you will tear the canvas. And it's not great. It is a balancing act. You want it tight like a drum, but not so tight that it's gonna warp your wood either, right? So it's not gonna rip the canvas, not gonna warp the wood. My suggestion is just to do it a little too loose than a little too tight. Because if you do it too tight, it's gonna rip. It's just gonna cause a lot of problems. Unfortunately, it just comes with practice. Yeah, you can always check. You're like, oh, am I doing it right? Just check it. Sounding like a drum, you're doing great. Absolutely. And also, when you gesso it, it's gonna tighten it a little bit more. There's different ways to get it tightened just that little bit more. It's better than overdoing it. All right, so we did there and there. So now we're gonna do here and there. So I just kind of like plant myself on one side, and I'm like, oh, that's the side we're doing.